All right. I call the St. Paul City Council to order. Roll call.
Naker,
Here.
Prince,
Here.
Tao,
Here.
Tolbert, Yang, here, Jalali,
Here.
Council President Brenmon.
Here.
7 present, no one absent.
Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance if you'd like. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consent agenda items 3 through 18 are before you for your consideration.
All right, on consent, is there anything that should be taken separately? All right, seeing none, Mr. Tao moves the balance of the consent agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The consent agenda is adopted. Item 19, Resolution 22-161, approving adverse action against the liquor on sale, 100 seats or less, liquor on sale Sunday, and gambling location license held by Anvil Properties, Inc., doing business as the Foundry Pub, for the premises located at 1201 Jackson Street, and the acceptance of the settlement agreement and addition of the conditions to the licenses held by Anvil Properties, Inc., doing business as the Foundry Pub.
Right, and that is the long one today. I put this on discussion. This is a bar in Ward 5, and I just wanted to draw attention to this matter, the adverse action on this item. I know that we have discussed other bars in the city with challenges, and I actually want to say job well done to our DSI and to our police department on this item, acting swiftly on matters with, I think, a changeover in ownership and just holding the business accountable for the behavior in the building and outside the building, quick, fast, and just taking action and codifying it so that if items happen in the future, that we have this on the record and an agreement that has been made as part of the adverse action. And I know that there are other businesses, particularly bars in the city, where we have these challenges, and I really, when I read through the conditions that have been laid out here, I was appreciative of the work and appreciative of the pace at which this was taken care of. So I just, I'm going to move approval and mostly just raising awareness on this item. Any other discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted. Item 20, Resolution 22-49, adopting the Point Douglas Regional Trail Master Plan. This was laid over from January 19th.
Councilmember Prince.
Thank you, Council President Brenmon. We're going to hear from Brett Husong from our Design and Engineering Department at Parks to give just a brief presentation of the plan. This is a really important extension of the bike system down. It reaches all the way to Newport and Bailey Road. It also provides, in that part of town where there are no sidewalks, there are no safe places to walk a dog or for a family to use the outdoors. And so this will make a huge difference in terms of making it a safe, walkable, bikeable place for people to enjoy. And basically, it's within the right-of-way of the freeway, so it also doesn't use land that is important for other things. So with that, Brett has done an excellent job. Mr. Husong has done an excellent job of community outreach and engagement. There's been an advisory committee that's worked for about a year and a half, 2 years, and we have a great master plan.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, President Brenmon, council members. This is an exciting project, like Councilmember Prince was saying, and Parks and Recreation has been working on this for about 2 years. And next slide, please. And so this is in Ward 7, District 1. And the idea is we are trying to create a safe, accessible trail for all users, all ages and abilities. And so our goals that I have listed here under the project scope are to engage District 1 and the underrepresented community. We also want to plan a continuous off-street trail to connect between St. Paul and Washington County along the corridor of Point Douglas Road. And the ultimate goal here is to increase the safety, accessibility, awareness, and connectivity. And I'll get into a few more of these points on how we got to those goals.
I
And
want to
then-
just quick interrupt you before you get too deep into your presentation. If you could, just for the public record, introduce yourself and your role in the Parks Department.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
I apologize. My name is Brett Husong. I'm a landscape architect in the Parks and Recreation Design and Construction Division.
Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we want to complete the committee, city council, and Met Council approvals in order to seek future design funding and implementation. And so I do want to point out that this project is also identified in the Met Council's Parks and Policy Plan. And so this identifies the corridor as a regional trail search corridor. And so along with that, it is also identified in the St. Paul Bike Plan, and it is also identified in the District 1 Community Plan. And so we are taking this and we are building upon that and moving forward with the master plan. So the project timeline, we started in fall 2020, and we originally wanted to start in spring, but we delayed the project in order to engage more people. So we went through a variety of engagement opportunities, and then we went through design studies where we hired a consultant to look at preliminary engineering, to understand how the corridor is being used, and to interact with the community. We also had meetings with the Parks Commission and the Transportation Committee. And now we are in the winter of 2022 where we are going through final acceptance and approvals from City Council and then through Metropolitan Council. Next slide. And here's the community engagement that we reached out to. We had an advisory committee where we had several meetings. You can see the community review periods. So we had a lot of the major corridor stakeholders, which included the District 1, Ward 7, Ramsey County as the neighbor, including Washington County. And then MnDOT, this corridor is actually within the MnDOT right-of-way. So there's a lot of coordination that was involved between them. And we go through, the property does go through some DNR-owned and railroad-owned properties. Public engagement opportunities, we've held most of these virtual. We had 2 events in October and December, and then also with the District 1 community. And what we found is we were able to reach out to a lot of people. We're talking about upwards of 150 to 200 people reviewed these presentations each time. But as I get further here, the next couple of slides, we realized we weren't hitting the demographics that we were looking at for the underrepresented communities. So what we did is we looked at some of the focus groups that you see at the bottom, and we tried to reach out to some of the Somali community groups. We tried to reach out more to the youth, reach out to the high schools in the area, and try and create those one-on-one interaction. Next slide. Thank you. So when I talk about our equity analysis, we can look at the demographics that are of District 1, where 43% of the people are white. And if you look on the right side, you can look at what we received for our initial survey respondents, which 80% of the respondents were white. And so we're falling into that demographic of middle-aged white respondents. And so what took a little bit longer is we stepped back and we created some more of those focus groups to understand, well, what are some of the needs of the larger community? And so what we heard is that we should, number one, extend the engagement process. So that was the easy one. It's easier to slow down, but how do we reach that diverse group? And it was helpful to reach out to some of the community leaders, some of the businesses along that area. And what we heard is the major lack of use or around the corridor is the lack of awareness and inclusivity. And so what we thought we could enhance that is to organize a grand opening celebration, to make this a shared public use amenity. And we also talked about increasing demand by providing more amenities such as lighting, benches, shade, and to increase inclusivity. A lot of the respondents talked about having maps in their language, and also to have interpretation of different community groups such as Dakota, Somali, Hmong, or Karen. And so that is an important part of the master plan as I'm submitting it through Met Council, is to identify, well, what are some of these equity and inclusivity items that can be added to it. Next slide, please. And so here's, we'll briefly go through the master plan in itself, but it starts at Indian Mounds Regional Park at Burns Avenue, and we're looking at the bold light blue alignment. And this is on the east side of 61. You'll see some darker alignments in dark blue, and that is currently the Fish Hatchery Trail. And so as the interim condition, we will be using the Fish Hatchery Trail. And to give you a little background, Parks and Recreation has received funding to improve the Fish Hatchery Trail in the next 2 or 3 years. So we're going through the design process. Long term, we will look at other designs on the east side of Highway 61, which is the light blue. So the light blue goes from Burns Avenue all the way down to the Battle Creek Regional Park trailhead, and uses that from the trailhead, uses the entrance road down to Lower Afton. So what we are doing is we're utilizing the existing right-of-way to build a trail, multi-use trail. So this is a 10 to 12 foot trail. We are identifying crossings at Lower Afton. We don't have specifics, but we know we need pedestrian enhancements to get people across, both pedestrians and cyclists across the intersection. Next slide, please. Segment 3, we're moving down from Lower Afton all the way down to Highwood. This is more of a rural scenario where there are no curbs along this segment. Homes are on the east side of Point Douglas, and we would be building the multi-use trail. So again, a 10 or 12 foot trail that is separated from vehicles, either by a boulevard or by curbs. And so this, you can see the dashed line that shows the existing curb line. We would be using part of the right-of-way, and which is the shoulder, and also part of the roadway. So we're building out, and in some of those areas, we would maybe need retaining wall. Next slide. As we move further down segment 3, we still have the same scenario with homes on the east side. And the trail is built or proposed for the west side because we are trying to avoid driveways, we are trying to avoid service areas, we are trying to avoid those conflicts that you would typically see with vehicles and pedestrians with turning movements. And so what is shown here is a pinch point where it shows figure 21. This is in between Springside and Highwood Avenue, where we are proposing to acquire some property. This is in the long term. We also have other plans in the short term, such as moving MnDOT to Jersey barriers or using shared road facilities as an option. Next slide. This is showing some of those conflicts where we would possibly need to acquire easements or property. And the scenario showing at these homes are steep slopes in the service areas where that is being used. And so I want to reiterate that this is a long-term plan, and we will work with the homeowners to understand an agreement in the future. This is similar to what we have seen with the Phelan Regional Park, where we identified property that could be acquired by the city when the homeowner approved or agreed to sell it. And so we have acquired that property recently, and we are working to design a trailhead at Phelan. So there is precedent for this. And one thing I'll note about this is we did send out letters to all of the homeowners on this screen. And I have received correspondence from some of them. Next slide, please. Segment 4, this is showing an existing trail segment. It is already there, so it's virtually a replacement of that. Next slide. And then the final segment is segment 5, which is located just north of Washington County. It makes the final connection. We are looking at, once again, using the right-of-way and partially moving the curb. And then the identification at the bottom at Bailey Road and Point Douglas, we are aware of crossing limitations at that point in terms of safety for both cyclists and pedestrians. So we'll look at future geometric improvements or signalized crossings. Next slide, please. Here are some of the public services that were identified during our surveys and our focus groups, trying to bring out some of the amenities, shade, lighting, things that will have a perceived safety, but then also as part of these using different languages and texts. So it feels like some of the underrepresented communities feel inclusive and welcome throughout the site. Next slide, please. And here's a cost estimate of what we are looking at. It is $7 million. The total mileage is 5.75 from Burns Avenue down to Bailey Road. And so this is what we are seeking for federal funding and legacy funding. So we would not be looking at any city CIB funding going forward. Next slide. And so the next steps, we've received approval, or at least recommendation to reach out to City Council from Parks Commission, Transportation Committee, and District 1. And our next steps would be going to the March Met Council board meeting for approval or presentation. And then in the spring, we would submit the project for a regional solicitation in order to receive federal and legacy funding to begin design and then eventual implementation. And so I'm here to seek approval and answer any questions that you may have at this point. Thank you.
Are there questions? Ms. Naker?
Thanks, Council President. Just a comment that if it ends up looking as gorgeous and if it ends up being as connective as the Robert Piram Regional Trail on the opposite side of the river, it's going to be a worthwhile investment. So it's really exciting to see.
Exactly. River trails are great with the way they go, and the connection is wonderful too. Ms. Yang?
Thanks. I agree. It's really exciting to see the plan for this. And regarding the funding piece, Brett, did you say that you're still searching for federal funding for it?
Yes,
Okay.
we need to apply
Gotcha.
for that funding, and it does help our cause when we have a complete master plan, and we've identified some of the areas that we need to whether acquire property or to partner with other agencies like MnDOT or Ramsey County.
Mr. Tell?
Thank you, Council President. This is very exciting as well. It's good use of public resource, and it is for a long time. I think this is an area that has been overlooked with the highway and the train track. But I definitely see this with increased value to St. Paul and the neighborhoods along the bike trail. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Prince?
And thank you, Councilmember Tao. And to that point, we're really excited about some developments down along Highway 61 and in that neighborhood where we've recently gotten some interest from the legislature and from our Congresswoman to get funding for cleanup of Pig's Eye. I think we're finding that there's a strong constituency that wants to support this part of town. I just need to tell a quick story. Last Friday afternoon, I spent a couple of hours with one of my constituents who I've gotten a lot of emails from over the years, but I've never actually met him in person. And, we've kind of gone around and disagreed and so forth. But in any event, we got together and he wanted to drive the length of Point Douglas with me and show me different important things about it. What he told me and provided some old newspaper articles was that Point Douglas at the turn of the century became a place where a number of small Victorian-style homes were built, and they were served by the Great Northern Passenger Rail that had a station down there. And it was the city's first commuter neighborhood. So it's got quite an interesting history. The neighborhood at that point was called Burlington Heights, and that constituent, Brian Matter, is very interested in following this project and seeing what else we can learn historically about the area. Point Douglas, according to Brian, was the first road built in St. Paul. So it's a great part of town to explore, and if you haven't been there. And I think, unless there are more questions, with that, I will move approval.
So there's a motion to approve from Councilmember Prince. Any other discussion on the motion? I would just say, when you said the turn of the century, I had to think for a minute, because the century turned again.
Oh, yeah, the last,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
old
right?
turn of the
It's
century.
Like, which century turned? Mr. Tolbert, did you have something to add? Okay, I'm sorry. So there's a motion and no further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted.
Thank you.
Item 21 is final adoption of ordinance 22-5, granting the application of OPSA Nagasa to rezone property at 647 York Avenue from B3 General Business to T2 Traditional Neighborhood, and amending Chapter 60 of the Legislative Code pertaining to the zoning map.
And this is before us for last reading. Ms. Yang moves approval. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Yang.
Thanks. I wanted to share that I am very supportive of the rezoning request here. It would allow the buildings currently vacant lower level to be used for residential uses, and I also feel it'd be a really great addition to our Payne business corridor, since this property is adjacent to that as well. So with that, I move approval.
All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The ordinance is adopted. Item 22 is first reading of ordinance 22-7, amending Chapter 86 of the Administrative Code to add Section 86.12, requiring council approval prior to submission of grant applications.
And colleagues, this ordinance is really, I just think, some housekeeping and unfinished business. The practice of bringing grant applications to the council prior to application is a practice that most of our departments use for most every grant, and this really just tightens it up and says for all. And at the advice of our chief budget officer and finance director, I actually would like to make an amendment to the ordinance before we move to the public hearing section next week, and that would be in section B1 to simply strike the for $100,000 or more. And the thought here is that it's easier to communicate and understand if it's just all grant applications, whether they have a city obligation or not, need to come to the council for its approval before the applications are submitted for its grant application. So I would move to strike for $100,000 or more. Is there any discussion on that motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The amendment is approved, and the ordinance is laid over to February 9th for second reading public hearing. Item 23 is a public hearing of ordinance 22-6, granting the application of VU Investments LLC to rezone the property at 1128 McCubbin Street from R2 single-family residential to RT1 two-family residential, and amending legislative code section 60.303 to reflect the change.
All right, and this is a public hearing. I will say that we do not have folks on the phone line today for public hearings. I know that on this item, we do have the architects on this project available in the room if there are questions. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? If you'd like to speak to this item, please head up and welcome. You can just start out by introducing yourself, and actually those will pick up your voice just fine.
Okay. Hi, my name is Evan Hall. I'm with HL Architects, located at 1511th Avenue South, Wade Park, Minnesota. I'm here can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm here on behalf of the owner of this property, Mr. Vu. He could not make it today. Previously on the site was a duplex that was in rough shape, and it had a conditional use permit. It has since been removed from the property, and the client is looking to build another duplex on the property that fits in with zoning, that fits in with the zoning code, except the conditional use permit doesn't extend past a year, so that's why we're seeking to rezone it from R4 to RT1. And we're here to answer any questions that y'all might have about the project.
Great, thank you. And it's actually a very timely topic. We are working on a 1 to 4 unit housing study. We passed phase 1 just a week or two ago. And this type of problem is actually one of the things that it should address when we're fully completed with the project, where a property that was conditional as a duplex goes vacant for more than a year, and then it goes back to its underlying zoning. In this case, was a single family home. And the only, you could get signatures from your neighbors if you'd like to try to get that rezoned, but that can prove challenging in certain areas. I know that happened actually on my street itself. So I appreciate the additional information on this, and that you're being here today to answer questions. I don't know if there are questions from my colleagues. Nope. But thank you very much.
Thank
we
you.
look forward to seeing the improved building in this space.
Thank you.
All right, I would move to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the ordinance is laid over to February 9th for final adoption. Item 24 is a resolution public hearing 22-17, authorizing the Department of Planning and Economic Development to execute grant agreements with the State of Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, which include indemnification clauses, acceptance of grant funds, and the amendment of related city budgets.
Mr. Tao.
No comment. This is as part of the financing for the St. Paul City School.
Wonderful. All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? Seeing none, Mr. Tao moves to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 25 is resolution public hearing 22-14, approving the application of the Great Northern Festival for a sound level variance in order to present amplified sound for the slow show performance on February 4th through February 5th at Lake Como Pavilion, 1360 Lexington Parkway North.
And I know last week we talked a little bit about Great Northern Festival. I really encourage people to take a look at their website and look at all the events and opportunities that are sort of dovetailing in with our pond hockey, with our winter carnival. The list of activities and events on Great Northern Festival are diverse, interesting, unique. This one looks really cool at Lake Como Pavilion. Hopefully it'll warm up a little bit. I know the soccer game tonight is going to be freezing. And so this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? Seeing none, I move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 26, resolution public hearing 22-15, approving the application of the Minnesota United FC for a sound level variance in order to present amplified sound on February 19th or February 26th at Allianz Field, 400 Snelling Avenue North.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? Seeing none, Mr. Tao moves to close the public hearing and approve. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Legislative hearing consent agenda items 27 through 44 are before you for your consideration.
Good afternoon, Ms. Mormont.
Good afternoon, Council President Brendan, council members. I'm not aware of anyone here to testify on a legislative hearing item, so I will withhold the staff report.
All right. So we are here having a public hearing for items 27 through 44. This is a public hearing. Seeing no one, Mr. Tolbert moves to close the public hearing and approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearings are closed and the consent agenda is adopted.
All right, before we adjourn, there's been a special request for news from the wards. But before we do that, I do want to acknowledge for our viewers, our brand new Director of Council Operations, Brent House, who's joined us. We're very excited to work with you. I will put you on the spot if you're willing just to say hello and greetings to folks. And I encourage you to put your microphone really close to your face.
Hello, I'm Bryn House, new Director of Council Operations, and just very excited to be here with you all. So thank you.
Wonderful. It's great to have you. We're excited to work with you. Bryn comes to us from the state capitol, where she worked for the Speaker of the House. And so we know she's got the chops and the skill and know-how, and we're really excited to work with you. So welcome. In addition to that, Ms. Naker begged for news from the ward. So let's do it.
Thanks, Council President. I've been missing news from the wards. I don't know what's going on. Plus, I'm very excited. So Winter Carnival, first and foremost, happening right now through February 6th this Sunday. So make sure to check out the variety of wonderful events, both downtown and at the fairgrounds. But I really wanted to announce that the St. Paul Farmers Market was just nominated by USA Today as one of the top 10 farmers markets in the country out of 8,600 registered markets nationwide. You can vote now to make sure that they win, because we know they are the best. So we should make sure that the truth gets out there by going to the link that you can find by searching USA Today St. Paul Farmers Market, I'm sure.
All right, so that's
very exciting.
USA Today St. Paul Farmers Market, and it's like, is it a poll?
It's a poll.
We better get there.
And you can see 9 other not as great farmers markets when you go to that link, in case you're interested as well.
Does it give you an option to vote for second and third place?
I don't think it's a ranking.
All right. Got our orders. Ms. Jalali.
I am excited because this week the EV car share network announced that the cars are on the streets and you can take a ride. So this is great. I want to really thank Chief Resilience Officer Russ Stark and Samantha Henningsen, who have been working so hard, and the great people at Our Car. And we also have a partnership with the City of Minneapolis in addition to our own, XL Energy, and there's just a lot of different partners that have invested in building this out. And now there's affordable electric vehicle car share in neighborhoods across St. Paul. So they're doing a soft launch. I'm hearing from constituents that they saw the EV cars out in the streets. One person said, they put it right in front of my house. They seemed extremely excited about that. So you might have to fight that person to use that one. But just want to raise attention to it. It got some good media coverage already, but I'm personally extremely excited. I have an Our Car membership now also, and I renewed my driver's license. So I have big plans to drive the EV cars in the coming months and hopefully years. But appreciate this whole council committing to investing in that, and I think it's going to be an amazing and cleaner energy fueled asset for our community. So that's my news from many wards, but has a lot of Ward 4 spots, so I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and it's been, as watching them pop up, unoccupied, but the chargers popping up was exciting for the day that we would see the cars as well. So this is wonderful. Thanks for bringing that up. Other news, Ms. Prince?
Well, I don't want to steal Councilmember Tao's thunder, but his scarf reminds me that today we're welcoming the team from Honduras and the U.S. team.
Sorry about it.
To St. Paul to the bold north, for sure, for a very, very exciting opportunity for our city, and we wish them all well. And my son is going to be there, and my husband said, I don't think he has clothes warm enough for this. But in any event, take it away, Councilmember Tao. It's so exciting.
Well, the advantage is to us, right? So we'll see what come out of W.
The advice is always layers. Wear lots of layers and use those little hand and feet warmers. Any other news before we adjourn? Great. Thanks for indulging us. There's nothing else to come before us. We are adjourned.